Come in, come in. Yeah, about to start. Not yet. Okay, today will be done in English. So 오늘은 제가 영어로 해야 될 것 같아서요. 혹시 한국말 자료는 따로 예전에 제가 이거 관련해 가지고 썼던 내용이 있어서 복사를 해서 드렸으니까 기본적으로 이 내용이 다 있기 때문에 혹시 나중에 따로 읽어보시면 도움이 되실 것 같고요. 아니, but I'm just gonna do it in English, so it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oops. We're about to start. Hello. Good to be back. Good to be back home. Yeah, this is my second home. So. 오늘은 영어로만 진행을 해야 될 것 같습니다. So today I'm just gonna do it in English only because the translation this is a little complex. So if I really want to do a translation, I have to like prepare a lot with the translator for certain time for certain terms. But since we don't have much time, we'll just do it in English. For Korean speakers, you can refer to the material. It's pretty much the same thing. So. Uh, Actually, this topic I already talked about it like last year in business persons world conference last year. So pretty the basic content's the same, but it's been a while, so some things have been a little updated. I myself's been changed, so I'm sure the delivery might be a little different, but I think this is something that we should ponder upon as we, as a remnant leaders, as well as the remnants, should be aware of what's really going on out there, and what is need to be aware, and what about ourselves and what's going on in the field. Okay, so the title is a little. It sounds complex, right? Changes in corporate ecosystem of 21st century and three enterprises, and it's big, very big words. A few keywords. One is we're going to talk about the business world. So that's a corporate ecosystem. Ecosystem simply means just like, the food chain of the world. So within the business, what's really going on in this business world? Where in 21st century? Jesper, can I switch this off? Cool. Right. And what we're going to talk about the changes. Why it's different in 21st century, and how does it translate to us who are preparing for the three enterprises? Because that's the commission God has given to us, right? So let's move on. Luis, yeah. So basically, we're going to cover four big areas. First of all, first part will be what are the changes? There are three types of changes: business environment, direction, and purpose in 21st century. So we're going to look into that. And actually, the second part we want to look into is these changes are actually initiated by the three organizations. So that's what we want to understand. And the third part is then why do these three organizations lead such changes? And how does it really translate to us who are preparing for the three enterprises? So with that basic layout, let's talk about the changes. Next page. Move on. Uh, firstly, let's look at the changes in business environment. Right, this is the image file, so I couldn't translate last night. But anyway, previously up to 18 centuries all the way to 20 centuries, the economy has been developed based on the locations. Where you are is very important because physical distance and locations really matters. Of course, it costs more if you live far. ship more, and whether goods or the person who move on. So in older age, you only sell it to the people near you, like neighborhoods, shops, and stores. And as the technology improves, this distance become larger and larger and larger, and up to 20th centuries becomes a sort of big. The world becomes a big economic chain, but still the advantage is if you near to one another, then you have more advantage. So, like regional economic blocks been formed up to 20th centuries, like ASEAN, it's like the Southeast Asian network, and how EU, even though now the UK has been out of the EU, what people has been forming, because that's part of the reason why we're going to talk about it, why these regional economic blocks are crumbling apart, because that made sense up to 20th centuries, but now things are changing. Move on. The economy is actually shifting from the regional blocks into the company-led ecosystem. Um, these are little sort of figures of the common companies that you are very aware of, but only for 5, 10 years ago, maybe some of these companies not even present. This was actually I did some updates yesterday. 1.7 billion. That's the number monthly active Facebook users now by July. One day, there are 4.7 billion searches made in Google, and one day 10.8 billion views in YouTube's been done, and 6.3 billion tweeters in a day, and mobile apps downloads 492 million downloads per day. That's just too huge to even imagine. So the whole point here is all of these changes refers to the economy happening around one company. So it used to be we live in the same region, then we work together to form an economy. But now, due to the lot of technology breakdowns, and the latest trend is if a company is able to come out with large platform or some sort of ecosystem of their own, people come together, regardless of the age. I mean, I was um, in China, it's Pokemon Go is not working, so I wasn't really be able to see what's happening. But I saw, you know what Pokemon Go is? The game become big issue. I came Hong Kong 2 days ago, and every time I got onto the subway or bus, someone's always doing this Pokemon Go. So they were like looking at the map. So I thought they were looking at the navigation, but it was actually they're looking for the monsters, try to capture. It was created by one company, technology company, used the content from the Japanese animation, which you are aware of. So now it become a big hit throughout the world. There are people like flogging thousands of people moving to the small district just to catch that little monster, right? Which is weird, but yes, it is happening. Why? Because the ecosystem is changing to a company. So even if you're just the one company, now it's become an age where you can influence the people, the world. You can make the changes to the world, even if you're a company. So we can move on to the next page. But business direction has been also changed. Before there, few characteristics of new ecosystem. One is opening up the core technologies and providing platforms. It used to be that my secrets have to be kept by myself. Like KFC's been keeping their recipes for 75 years. Yesterday I saw news that finally it was leaked out. The nephew of Colonel Sanders actually released the secret recipe, and KFC denies that that's not true. Well, he said the secret lies in the white pepper, which I'm not sure how true that is. Anyways, so you have the edge if you protect your core technology or core skills. But it's becoming it's changing. You more companies now opening up their core technology because they realize with just your own research, you're not able to break through, and you're actually opening up certain part of the technology to invite people into it, and you provide the platform for them to work on. But the deal is it has to be done in my platform. So whatever contribution you make will be shared together. So that relates to the co-creation and connected consumption. Well, that's it's a little bit of a messy picture here. It just simply describes the business ecosystem of Apple and how they are all related one another. It was not just a single Apple company. We design, we create everything done by ourselves, but how the entire app system was sort of started when Apple opened up to the people, to the companies, and they all shared together. Move on to next page. The purpose has been changing too. It used to be competition centers. I win my market, and that was very important because the word market share is still very important in the textbook. How much percentage of the total market that I have is so important. But it's also referred to as a red ocean in one of the books, popular book called The Blue Ocean, where people come into the certain restricted market and they try to fight for the shares, like common things like supermarkets, um, uh, even coffee. You always fight for the market share, but the trouble with that competition-centered market is the focus is actually on the needs that's already met. For an example, if I make a new coffee brand, now if you hear, I saw the Starbucks, I saw Pacific Coffee, I saw some, and then there was new brand coming up. I just found out the opposite. Olympian City, this Muji started cafe. Like wow, I thought they were selling clothes, right? So everybody's jumping into the cafe, but the trouble is the coffee is never new. I want to drink coffee. That's my needs. But my needs are already met because I can choose Starbucks or Muji now or even Costa or whatever. So it's not a new met needs. But so if you want to enter into that market, it's not something that you will create a new needs, but you need to just become better than others. So the question is how to be better, offer more, but it's not sort of a, oh, I've never met this my needs before, but it's being fulfilled. The trouble, same thing as the mobile phone, or I would say mobile providers like Three, or how HK, Hong Kong, what they have, smartphone, they fight for each other. Same thing, like you can always so ended up fighting for the prizes, right? So whatever, yeah, as long as you give me the right signal, I'm gonna move on to the cheaper ones. Um, so these kind of competition-centered industry, the trouble is, in order to keep the market share to create the profit, you're gonna have to keep invest on because it's become lots of investment has already been made, so that ended up self-trapped. It's really hard to put your leg out of that dog fight because there you have invested so much already. So unless you really make a big decision, okay, we're gonna move out, move on. Otherwise, you're gonna have to invest, but somehow you're sinking more and more, and your profit margin becomes thinner and thinner. So that's sort of a competition-centered market has been going on. Next, but it's actually changing towards to that kind of direction. The purpose has been changing. Uh, so now it's becoming more participate, share, and open kind of economy. The whole point of here is to, instead of fighting for a limited market, but let's enlarge the market, enlarge the ecosystem. That was sort of a purpose, and that's how Apple started creating this App Store concept, which is now very common. But when they started, it was really totally new. Because technologies, you're supposed to develop your software, provide to the people, but now Then you are offering a platform for people to come in, and you create your own, and we take the shares together. So market and company kind of grow together. Second part is then here comes lots of startups, innovative companies coming up with a creative monopoly. They realize, okay, how about we try to find the needs that's not met, whatever it is, right? So that's what some professors calls it blue ocean. It's like it's not crowded, it's an undiscovered land. Um, the good thing about that part is you can start small. When PayPal was first introduced to the market, it was totally new. Like before PayPal, the only way for one person to send money to another is wire transfer in the bank, and that takes a lot of effort, and you need to have a bank account. You need to have like complex then fee structures. But PayPal make it suddenly become very easy. You don't have to really even have a bank account to send money. Um, so that was sort of a they were a very small company, but they were able to meet the needs. So fill the need, find so they approach the market by find the needs first and fulfill it after that. So instead of keep supplying for the new sort of better services, they find the needs first and then focus on that. And the good thing about that is you can start from small and you can be very flexible. Say people say, yeah, but I'm not happy with this spot. Okay, we can change because you're small anyway, so it's easy to change. So that's why there are so many startups around the world try to come up with what is that blue ocean that we can discover, which was not never easy, but there are a lot of creative ideas coming up, and even the governments are focusing, telling you have to come up with this some sort of creative industry, which is not easy. But I know even Hong Kong government is focusing on it and like emphasizing it. But somehow they're not really seeing that in order to do that, they need to do the participate, share, and open part. But somehow, um, instead of that, I just want you to create something, which is not happening. Right? Moving on to next page. Um, so basically, up till now, we've been taught from the schools and the market says the the purpose of company is to make profit. You need to make profit to survive. You need to make profit to grow, earn and grow. That was the purpose, right? But somehow that's a system where the money has to become the purpose and the motivator. You compensate people for the uh, making money. You give incentives for salespeople to create more sales. But somehow that's not enough. So latest trend for the last 10 years has been more of pursue shared values. So the company actually, many more and more companies now aim for the social values. They think their founders believe in, or the company's shareholders believe in. So somehow they focus more on delivering their philosophies and stories. So in that case, the process has to be so important because how you deliver is as important as what you get out of it. So process important as sometimes more important than the results. And basic I understanding is the profit will naturally follow the process of value creation. If you create a value for people that we all believed in, we share, then profit will naturally follow. Sounds very similar to a little bit of our Tarakbang message, right? Because we say don't chase the money, but the money will follow. But which is actually interestingly that's a trend lately. So more and more companies are really into this. Next page. Uh, but so up till now, so we covered a little bit of changes of the trend. So that was up till now what I mentioned was just an observation. It's not about we have to go that direction. There's always a need for the traditional industries as well, but somehow more and more, even the traditional industries moving towards that direction. Some people say, "Well, yeah, isn't that only limited to the technology companies?" But that's not true because even technology now become one of the very essential for every industry. Now we can't even think about like 20 years ago, you never link automobile with a technology. Because car is just a car, it's just the mechanics, and you need to have the oils and engines. But now, most of the cars come up with artificial intelligence. Now become smarter. Now even have a driverless car, auto driver, and soon don't know what's going to happen, right? So somehow this technological development is influencing every part of the industry and moving towards that same change. So now, but I want to look at a little closely. These kind of changes and not just happen for by chance, but in fact, these changes are actually led or initiated by the three organizations. Okay. One of the three organizations we always talked about are Jewish people, right? Jews. This is the sorry for the this is all in Korean, but basically this explains about how the startup markets in U.S. are all composed of the Jewish people. If you can read Korean, the one in the yellow box are the Jewish people, and the dark gray is the company name. See how LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman is Jewish, Yelp or Zynga, YouTube, and here all Elon Musk was Jewish, Peter Thiel, founder of PayPal, and he invested Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is also Jewish, and how they are all linked to one another. So what does it say? It's like they call it Jewish mafia. It's a startup mafia because they help each other. So within this network, one founder is helped by lots of Jewish foundations and the funds, and be successful. And he create a new fund and help other Jewish people as well. So that's sort of a creating. They're making lots of changes. These are the companies that are actually creating lots of changes. See YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, Yahoo, Tumblr, Salesforce, Oracle, Sun Microsystems, Google, eBay, PayPal, Tesla, LinkedIn, Twitter. You tell me. So it's just a handful of people, but actually making such an impact to the world now. Next page. And of course the one and only Steve Jobs, which is very famous for his love for the meditation, and his great love for the New Age beliefs. In fact, he used to be really so deeply into these Eastern philosophies. So he used to really praise the impact of the meditations that upon his businesses. Keep going. A couple more pictures. Well, this is actually a picture from a movie. Who's the guy? Yeah, Aston Kutcher, right? Well, that's the reason is why, because he got this spiritual thirst. So during the college years, he just quit the school. He went to India for 7 months with a backpack, looking for the truth. So he learned about the spiritual world of Hinduism, and he discovered some sort of a truth in this meditation. He came back. After he came back, he started out with this Apple One. This is the very first Apple he created at home. He built it himself with his friend Steve Wozniak. Well, he went into before that, and before he started founding the Apple, he wanted to continue studies this Buddhism, but he got this great advice from his mentor, Buddhist monk. He says, instead of becoming a monk, I think you should go into business and really spread your teachings, your beliefs in this spiritual world. And that's how he started Apple. So next picture. Move on. Yeah, I want to say this guy is Steve Wozniak. he founded Apple with this person with the beard. He was a technical guy. This he is actually, as of now, he's a third degree master mason of the Freemason. That is his wife. His wife belongs to the Order of Eastern Star, which is part of the smaller organization for women of Freemason. After they got married, and she converted him to become a Freemason, so he became quite a high rank. Um, you know, two founders of the Googles, both of them Jewish. They grew up in these Jewish values, and they wanted to change the world. But again, they did it by creating this platform. They were deeply into building this artificial intelligence that human being is not able to uh, meet all the needs, but they believe that by having artificial intelligence, they can solve all the problems of the world. So basically, the Google's ultimate goal is to build an artificial intelligence. So this search was a starting point for them to gather information, because you have to search for something. Then you, by learning the search, you learn about people, you learn about patterns, and the more people search for it, greater information gathers. So that's why they it's like a first portal to the internet, looking for the knowledge. So then you know what people look for, and you start linking up the knowledge, and that they developing the computers which learn them itself. It's self-learned, sort of artificial intelligence. So that's kind of their goal. Of course, Mark Zuckerberg, as I mentioned, he's also Jewish, but he was so into this humanism, and he wanted to study the about the human people. So during the high school years, he was just a high school student, but he was deeply into the Aristotle's and the philosophies of the mankind. So he often says the Facebook is the marriage between technology and humanism. So and philosophy. So basically, they come up with this because they wanted to tell them that's how human beings can resolve the problems of the world. Moving on. He's the founder of Wikipedia. What was his name? I can't remember. Anyway, again, he's also a great believer of the New Age thoughts, and his idea was that by creating the platform for the people to share the information, share the knowledge, we can create the greatest dictionaries or encyclopedias. And as of now, Wikipedia is like the largest encyclopedia in the world, and while all the British Britannica is all like bankrupt, and there's not much encyclopedias in the world still making their businesses, right? Moving on. So just then another thing is about, I just wanted to give an example of how these three organizations using to create some sort of a movement of the values. Well, he's the chief secretary of United Nations, but not. I don't want to look at him, but I want you to pay attention to what's in behind. It's the Rio Plus 20. That's the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. Have you ever heard about the word sustainable development? It's quite popular in like sort of the political world and corporate world, as well as academic world, where sustainable growth means you continue. So it's usually connected with the protecting the earth and how the environment is being destroyed. So we have to preserve the earth, green movement. Sounds great. It's really actually great stuff. Moving on, couple more pictures. Yeah, but there are different agendas for this. We all think, of course, it's so good to protect the earth. This then it's sort of general understanding that even if you go to school, ask your colleagues or friends, asking them, do you think the earth is really becoming worse and worse and the environment is being destroyed? Everybody will say, yeah, yeah, the human beings are gonna destroy all the earth. Most of them will say it. But is it really true? Some people, some real earnest scientists, they really study into that. But which is, of course, humankind's with that development, we are eating up lots of resources. That's for true. But it's not really up to that much worrisome level that people are really as much as they're worried to. So in other words, they believe into that idea because that's been taught and carefully, purposely delivered to the people. He is Al Gore, the ex-vice president of the United States. He's one of the greatest activists of the environmental movement. He goes around, and this is how this the chief executive of the Virgin Group, Richard Branson. He persuaded Richard Branson that this earth needs to be protected, so he donated really billions of dollars for this movement. But interestingly, all these ideas has all come from started from the this book called The Limit to Growth. That's a very old book. Yeah, I just wanted to show where was it. Yeah, there you go. So this was the book published in 1972, which is very, very old, by these guys called the Club of Rome. This is the think tank group from the different leaders. They come up with the issues of the whole idea of the project is the earth is endangered due to the industrial and technological development. So we have this mission to protect the earth. And why did they come out with that? Interestingly, all the leaders at the time creating this society called the Club of Rome is they all be influenced by a single idea. Next page. That's called. Yeah, is it next page? Continue. Is that one picture's missing? Keep going. Keep going. Going. One more. Yeah, that was actually the picture that I wanted to. They're all influenced by the idea of this guy. He's the philosopher in Norway. His name is. What's his name? I forgot. Arne something. Yeah, Arne Ness. He is the founder of the idea of deep ecology. Basically, he believed in the idea of Gaia, the earth having its own life. Earth is like the Mother Earth, the word came from there. The basic idea is that mankind is only part of the nature. When we are never on top of the nature. So we have to worship the Mother Gaia. So that was the very new age like idea, and all the environmentalist beliefs started from here, believing that we have to harmonize with the creatures, the creations. In fact, they believe in the nature was never created to serve human being, but human beings, as just like any other creatures, developed to serve the each other. So that was a basic idea, and they just now like people like Al Gore is a great believer of this idea of Gaia, and they are even. But these are the powerful people having influence, starting these movements, creating these changes into that. One page before. But he's a guy called Gunter Pauli. He created. he's lately creating this new movement called the blue economy. Lots of companies are being influenced by this. Lots of big CEOs are adopting this idea. The basic idea is green economy is not enough. Green economy means saving the earth, saving the resources, but it's not enough. You have to come up with what's lost. And the only way to make up for the loss is stay on course with the natural development. So he take a lots of idea of this this natural process. He adopted into the businesses. Like he started with this company where all the factory energies are run by the how they capture the rain and let use it. So in other words, there's no energy sort of wasted. So it's a great idea, and he came up with this book creating 100 innovative ideas. Many companies develop this. They take it, but one of the reasons why he believed in this idea was because he was also a member of the Club of Rome. He was one of the disciples of the RNS, and he now, of course, it doesn't say it. He going around the world preaching these concepts. I met him in Beijing like a few years ago because he came to the Peking University to give this idea. All the intellectuals in Peking University, they were standing applauses because like from the outlook, it sounds so great. You know, you help China by saving really the natural resources, and so in other words, they come up with great social values, so everybody will fall into it. But what's behind it? What's the philosophy they want to impart and deliver? It's actually hidden, but it's actually very direct. So can you go one slide above? So this is the summary of the reason why they lead such changes, because they all have a purpose. If the system goes into a single company-led ecosystem, you can skip the regional barriers. You are able to influence people even no matter how far you are. And why is it important? The most important part is because of this value that they believe in. So the three organizations, they all have their own values. It's not like they come together or let's destroy the earth by sharing these ideas. No. But what's behind them is Satan is actually utilizing them because they believe this value is so important for them and to the world. And we have to transfer this value, then that's their life goal, life mission, right? And by changing the ecosystem, it becomes more and more direct. It used to be like, even if I believe in certain values, you don't translate into the business. You just okay, business is business, but what you believe in is what you believe in. So you make a lot of money, and maybe you use that money to what you believe in. But now, from the changes that we have seen, it's breaking down. More and more companies come up, say, we believe in this value. If you believe in same value, you come together. You join us. So by doing that, they can directly deliver their disbelieving values. And how do they do that? They created this kind of company-led ecosystem so they can reach far. So they create a platform to brainwash or transfer directly. So optimizing for sharing ideology of the platform provider. And by how the method is let them participate, share, and open. So this is like a catalyst for expansion. So make it easy to expand. So more people come in, we believe in the same thing. And then this is the success we want to tell them. The true success now is we believe we achieve the value that we uphold. So that's the reason why these three organizations has been leading the latest change in the 21st century. So, and it's been massive. It influences everyone in the world, even whether you are in Middle East, whether you are in China or in the remotest part of the world. People know about Google, Apple. People even now they share the certain same values. In India, lots of projects going on, supported by these kind of companies. They seem great. So, oh, is it really? What about us? Are we doomed? How are we going to fight against these kind of people, and how are we going to create three enterprises out of this? But there are always two sides when something happens. Interestingly, if you look through the history, Satan always works so hard to create this kind of realm or sort of stronghold of his own, of disbelief, to push them people into this farther away from God. But God has always turned that against Satan and used it for the sake of the gospel. Well, take Judas Iscariot for an example. He was used by Satan to turn Jesus to the officials so they kill him. But ended up, because of that, because Jesus died on the cross, the gate of salvation opened up, and it was all for all of us. So likewise, if we just look at the world, I think we need to do two things. One, we really need to see the world correctly, understand what's really going on behind the pictures. This is what's going on in the world now. We need to be aware of it. But if we end there, then that's going to put us into dismay, and then that's not going to resolve the situation. But the second part is what's really important. Moving down, one more. So that's why I like to look at the relationship between the current changes and three enterprises. One more. The same changes that I mentioned it just now. A few minutes ago, we looked at from three organizations' perception or the way their purposes. But what about from our side? What about from three enterprises' side? Interestingly, the current change is actually really good for us. Actually, it's really best for the three enterprises. If it's, as I mentioned previously, business and your belief has to be separated, but becoming merging. So in a way, if you uphold the right value, the question is, what kind of value do you have? So if we have the right value, if we have the gospel, that sort of change is for our benefit because we can share the gospel value directly. And among all the social values that they hold on to, nothing matches the gospel. And we know, at least we know, the gospel has the greatest value. Then we already have the greatest content. And if the market's changing towards that direction to directly share the content, which is good for us. How do we do that? Next. So if the changes to the company-led ecosystem is working for the three organizations, it is also working for us actually, because the question is who is using it. So if now even small company comes up with the right solution and right platform, you are able to reach far. Likewise, meaning if we come up, if God provides us with the right platform, it becomes a foothold of the mission. So within the platform, we have a greater influence. So that means gospel environment can turn into a culture within that ecosystem. And the next. And the third part is about a participate, share, open trend. This is also good for us because previously, if you want to enter into certain business, you need to have certain criteria or special pass to join the elite group or join their sort of a network. But by opening up, breaking down the walls, having this sort of a trend, it's our remnants are even able to participate them easier than before. So evangelists now can easily penetrate into the companies as long as they have the quality to participate and create the values in them. So the purpose of the participate, share, and open economy is to create sort of their way of disciples, enlarging the economy, right? So in other words, discipleship becomes an asset, or it becomes a competitive edge. But for remnants, if you really understand the true discipleship, nothing is more truer than Jesus Christ's discipleship. Then we have the greatest competitive edge. Plus, the monopoly done by looking at the unmet needs, it's all about the creation, right? Create the needs that's never been created before. But in the world, the creative economy they talk about is never a creative, because nobody can create something. So the people they mention about creative economy is actually a mix and match. It's already there, but it's never mixed with this before. So they merged it and they form it and say, oh, this is something new. The only person who can create something out of nothing is the Holy Spirit. And if the Holy Spirit is with us, we are the only one who God can use to create that sort of economy. That's the reason why we have our remnants has a potential to make full use of the current change and come up with the three enterprises. So from this, we can see the platforms, sort of God is laying out the footstones. Satan's been using this to develop the greatest cultural war in people's mind, but God is actually utilizing that for the timing. When our remnants are ready, when our remnants in their heart, they are fully able to communicate with Jesus Christ by, when I say fully communicate, means you are fully submerging, you're surrendering into them, and filled by the Holy Spirit. Then they will be used by God to fully make use of these current situations, come up with the three enterprises. Next page. So, in conclusion, 21st century is actually the optimized ecosystem for fast growth and spread of three enterprises. So some people say, oh, yeah, but our remnants are growing so slow, and the world is getting worse. Whenever we're going to build these three enterprises, the world, three organizations are so strong. As I said, the change makes it easy for us. So this is actually all good. Next. So now is actually the opportunity of the age provided by God. So in summary, the two things that I mentioned is, number one, please look at the world with the right evangelist eye to understand what's really going on behind it. And number two, at the same time, please also have the right eyes to see what God is doing. Because in the world, there's always the work of Satan, but also the work of God at the same time. So we, whether we are remnant leaders or the remnants, as a remnant leaders, the first generations, we should be able to see this kind of changes and know what to prepare for our next generations. And as a second generation remnants growing up, they need to do not be afraid, but take this as God's sign and focus on to your own spirituality. And then in God's right time, these changes will work for us. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you.